Hey coaches, and welcome back to the channel. I am your coach Jordy, and today we are diving into one of the most critical aspects of making sure that your game day is the most optimal and has the most success. Whether you're coaching youth teams or competitive squads or anywhere in between, having a clear and actionable plan is extremely important to making sure that not only do your players enjoy what they do, but having success on and even off the field. Now, just a disclaimer, there are so many ways that you can potentially set up your game day for success. You could be a bit more laissez-faire about it, a bit more relaxed, or you could be super over the top. I need to plan every single detail that happens in a game day. But for me, this is what I've learned and what I think is the best for you. So let's get started. The first thing that you need to do in order to set up for success is first and foremost, analyze your own team. In order to do that thoroughly, you need to start by identifying strengths and weaknesses within your squad. You need to look at how your players work together. What types of relationships do they have? Do maybe some players pass more than others? And that can influence where you put your dribblers on your team. Knowing the relationships of your own players will help you get a full picture of how you need to set your team up for game day. The relationships will impact their performance on the day of the game. You need to evaluate each player's unique characteristics, their technical skills, their mindset, what areas they like to do, where they usually make mistakes. Maybe if you're a younger coach, maybe it's where they need to improve and then you start playing them there. Or maybe it's a tough game, so you want to put players where they really have their strengths. You need to know what their strengths and weaknesses are in order to be able to place them in the right place. Finally, you need to take stock of everything and what needs to improve. What's working, what isn't, what can we do better at, or maybe this player doesn't work there. This is your foundation. If the foundation of the house isn't solid, then the rest of the house will crumble. So make sure you really take your time on this one. Now, second one, it can be tricky, this one, but opposition analysis. Now, in most leagues, especially in youth, you don't have access to other teams. Unless you've recorded a game against that team already that season or the season before, then you don't really know how to do this. And especially if you're a part-time coach, you probably don't want to spend your free time going and watching a kid's youth game and to prepare. So it's really important that when you do come across these teams, that you really make sure that you understand what this team does. Now, we want to understand our opponents. Why? Well, we want to gather as much information possible about that team. Similar to our own team analysis, we want to find out their strengths and their weaknesses. Strengths to be able to cover up and to sort of negate, and weaknesses so that we can go and exploit and use our strengths to exploit their weaknesses. To be even more specific, we want to break down the 4 moments of the games and where they excel at and where their weaknesses are. So the 4 moments of the game is, of course, the attack when you're in possession, defense when you're just out of possession, going from attack to defense in transition, and defense to attack in transition. There's a 5th one, set pieces, that can usually influence as well. So I guess, let's say 5 moments of the game that we really want to hone in on. But most of the time, youth sports, they don't really focus on set pieces. It's not really a focus because it's an addition to the 4 moments of the game. Set pieces rarely happen, unless you include throw-ins, which happen a lot in youth football. But for right now, we just want to focus on those 4. Now, pay close attention to their key players. The ones that can really shift the game in the favor, that's really where you want to focus a lot of your attention into, because it could quite easily, your teams might be evenly matched on paper, but they may have that one midfielder that just runs the show when they're playing. So you want to make sure that your team's set up to help cover up their strength and to try to shift the focus somewhere else. But by understanding how good your opposition is in these 4 areas, just by knowing their tendencies, you can anticipate certain things that they'll do in the game, or what side of the field they favor. Maybe they like to play a long ball, or maybe they like to build up from the back. And this is going to show you basically where you need to make most of your focus. Step 3, identifying key moments and developing specific patterns. Now, this is a very broad aspect, so I've kind of really narrowed it down. So you want to identify critical moments of the game that you want to focus on. Now, you take the team analysis from your own team, the opposition analysis, and then you decide, okay, what critical moments or what phase of the game do I really want to focus on? These are the situations that will tip balance in your favor. So let's say they're really good at playing at the back. You don't press there, but maybe they're a bit weak going from attack to defense. So maybe it could be something like, as soon as you win the ball back, two players spring forward to then counter quickly. That could be just be one thing that you could do. But you want to think about how you adapt your own team structure or formation or how you play and behavior to those situations. Now, once you've answered these questions and identified what you need to do, this becomes the focus of our training sessions. This becomes the focus of the two or 3 or 4 sessions before we play that game. How can we use these moments to our advantage? And how can we create a plan in order to exploit their weaknesses in these moments? Step 4, we want to have key tactical points. Now, it's really time now to just dive into tactical details. You need to develop specific scenarios and address the key moments that we've identified. So you want to think about how we adapt our structure and behavior to then, as going back to the third point, identifying those key moments and developing patterns. Now we want to create tactics to support these. Now, especially in youth footy, clear communications is extremely important. So many times players have their own thoughts and what they think that the game needs. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. It doesn't really matter that way. But if you want them to accomplish a game plan, they need to understand exactly what they need to do. And this comes by repetition of both what they do physically on the field, and secondly, what they hear, what language you're using. If you use a bunch of different words at practice, it's not going to layer on top for the game. But if you constantly say, I'll use me, for example, when we press, if it's a 2-3-1 in 77, which is what we play here in Calgary, I tell my striker to cut the field in half. And what I mean by this is that when they press a center back, they cut off the goalkeeper and they cut off the other center back. So they have to go forward, ideally, in a perfect world. So one of my strikers, he understands this really, really clearly because I've told this language all the time. So whenever I say cut in half, it reminds him, okay, I need to curve my pressing run to be able to force it on this side. And just over time, this isn't something that you can fix for one game. This is something you develop over time, over weeks, over months to be able to get to this point. The more you practice these types of scenarios and the more you layer on the same language, the easier it is for players to understand exactly what you want from them, the clear and efficient communication. Now you've got all this information, Notepad is full of everything, but now you need to actually put pen to paper and create a specific plan for the game that you're playing. You need to start by defining 3 clear game keys for players to go out and execute. Any more than 3, players will start to forget. Anything less, and then it just doesn't cover enough for the game and what you may need. You could rock with 2. You could just be fine. You could maybe stretch it to 4 if you think your players have already done a couple of them really, really well. But what you need to do, 3 is the magic number. And anything you coach, 3 objectives, 3 game keys, 3 coaching points, all of these is the key for young football players. And these are the main objectives that we'll focus on during the game. And they'll guide our efforts. At halftime, remind them even before halftime, at the beginning of the game, during practices, leading up to the game, game keys, game keys, game keys. When they get to the game, you remind them of it at the beginning of the game, and you reinforce it, and you make sure it's focused. When you're on the touchline, coaching, shouting instruction, sure, little details here and there, but constantly remind them of the game keys. That way, they're going to keep remembering what you're trying to teach them. At halftime, you have a review. How are we doing in the game keys? Can we improve on them? If we're doing really, really well, maybe add an extra challenge to the game key. All of these compound together. At the very end of the game, you can have an analysis, talk to your players. How have you done them? Could we have done better? Could you have done worse? Let's say you did a key really, really well. Then you just, okay, we don't need to touch that anymore. That's part of our game now. Okay? And then you can bring something else in. Or we really, really struggled with this game key. That's our next session. We're working on this all throughout the next session. And it just builds on itself. Game keys are a great barometer to use how successful your team is at A, being coachable, and B, actually like being able to go out and execute a plan. And to see which players are coachable, which players get it, which players are even reinforcing it on the field. Now that's extremely interesting to watch, to see which players pick it up and will then tell other players what to do. But lastly, you got to deliver the team talk with energy and enthusiasm and confidence. Because if you don't believe in your own game plan and the team doesn't believe in it, then nothing's going to happen. So you have to get the players to buy in. And that comes by energy and enthusiasm that you throw into the game, that you put into practices leading up to it, that you arrive at the game no matter what time it is, and you're there with energy, greeting players, reminding them little things, giving them little challenges, making sure that they want to be there or that you want to be there as much as they do. So those are the 5 key tips of creating a perfect match day plan. Now, remember, preparation is key. The more you prepare, the better equipped you are in dealing with obstacles along the way during the game. A well thought out plan helps you feel confident, your players feel confident, and they can feel like they can execute. Bring energy and enthusiasm and make sure that they enjoy being there. Number one game key in your back of your mind is to enjoy it. They only play footy for so long. Just let them enjoy the game at the end of the day. Don't get too hung up on specific game keys. At the end of the day, they're there to enjoy themselves, and you're giving them the tools for success. So I hope you found this video successful. Like, comment, and subscribe for more of this type style of content. I actually really like making it, so make sure you stay tuned. Let me know in the comments how you plan for match day, or if you're a player, how does your coach plan for match day? Maybe it's something completely different. Maybe they let players take responsibility. I'm very excited to hear what you say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.